hospital bills, couldn't pay their rent and stuff like that, and just started losing and losing and losing and losing. Now they're out here in the streets, and there's a lot of pain and stuff. And when you're out there and you're feeling helpless, you're feeling hopeless, you're feeling like nobody cares. So that's why it's important for people that have a heart, you know, like Tim, to show up and to give some people some hope. You know, sometimes, man, it only takes a word of encouragement to somebody. Sometimes just takes, man, you know, you can do it. You know, don't give up. You know, then maybe it may take a meal or something. It may take a variety of things, man. You know, but you gotta find that need and feel it, and find that hurt and heal it, man. You gotta look for it because it's out there.
Tim, give us some of your experiences that you would like to relate to our audience this morning.
But Dr. Haynes, when I was out there in the streets, as Pastor Walker was saying, the hurt and the pain, you feel like you don't have nobody, you're on your own, and you want to just give up sometimes, you know. And I remember feeling like that when I was out there in the streets, you know. And that's why it touches my heart, because I know how people, men's and women's, they feel, you know. They go through the hurt, the pain, like family members know they done burnt the bridges up, because Lord knows I burned bridges up. And the hurt and the pain that's on them, you can see it, you feel it, you know. So that's why when I go to the streets, I pull them to the side and I ask them, and a lot of them know me. You know, they know that I come from that way of life, you know, and now that they look at me, you know, and I don't want them to look at me as nothing else but some hope.
Inspiration.
Inspiration, you know.
If you can do it.
If I can do it, you can do it too.
That's right.
You know, because if God did it for me, surely he'll do it for you. You know what I mean?
That's what they need. They need an example.
That's right. That's right. And that's what I try to be, some hope. You know what I mean? That we can change. You know, we can change that lie. You know, it's a lie. We ain't got to be stuck the same, you know. So when I go out there and see the hurt and the pain, I ask them, man, you know, man, how can I help? You know, because Lord knows that I see violence while I'm out there too. I see that too, you know. Matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago I was out there, man, I seen bloodshed. You know, it's out there, but it's just the hurt that Pastor Walker was saying, you know. And it's my job to go there and to let them know that we can change. You know, we can change this, whatever's going on, whatever the enemy is telling you, we can change it. You know what I mean? And I pray with them. You know, if you want me to pray, do you believe in prayer? Because prayer changes things.
All right, go on.
They change. Prayer changes things. Lord, look at me. You know, and I pray with them. You know, and most of all, I listen to them. You know, I listen to them. You know, but. Asking them to pray, and some of them like, pray on, I don't care where we at. We can be right there in front of the Jack in the Box, we can be outside Waffle House, we can be anywhere else, and also at the motel up there. I go to the motel up there too, you know, because a lot of guys from different states, you know, drugs, whatever, and I minister, you know, and that's the thing, you know what I mean? Just giving hope back, you know what I mean? That, man, if God do it for me, he'll do it for you. You just got to, man, break this. Let's break it. And I help. Whatever it is, here go my card. Call me. I'm coming. I'm coming. You know, it's just the way it is. And a lot of people say, but I do. I do. I go. I go. I don't care where it is that I need to go. I'm going. You know what I mean? Especially in the streets, in the projects, wherever it is, you know, I'm going, you know. God, man.
Are there a lot of folks like that out there in the streets, Pastor Walker?
Oh, yeah. There's plenty of people out there. I mean, just pretty much getting caught up in a vacuum, Dr. Haney, and they're lost. And
well, what I mean is, are there many ministers, people that are going out there and trying to bring them in? How about that?
I mean, there are some people out there that's doing it.
The harvest is plentiful.
Yeah, but the laborers are indeed few when it comes to this, because you know a lot of people are fearful. They're fearful to go out into those areas where people are, and where people are situated at, and where people are hurting. You know, but that's where you got to go to them. You got to go to them where they are, and to reach out into their world and come on their turf. You know, in other words, and to try to reach them, because you know, you can, you know, the doors of the church are open, but you know, if I don't know where the door is, you know, it doesn't do that open door doesn't do me any good. So I need somebody that's in the church that has the spiritual awareness and the relationship with God to bring that love and share that love. You know, Pastor Jones often says, you know, you get anything out of this message, and you know, and you hold your hand up, yeah, well then what you got to do with it now? You need to go out there, take it, what you got, and give it away.
Whatever it is,
go
no
get
matter
it.
how much it is, that
Absolutely.
you got something that you can give, and people are waiting to hear something
Yeah.
good. You see, in spite of how they might feel on the outside,
Right.
or might look on the outside.
Absolutely.
Something good. Everybody wants to know something good. And,
Absolutely.
And people like to know about salvation. You know,
That's
they
right.
like to hear your story.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
right.
Many
Yeah.
of them like to hear your
That's
story.
right.
And I've never ministered in the streets. But I've met a lot of folks who come from the streets.
Oh, yeah,
and
definitely,
let me know that you don't have to go to the street
Right.
in order to minister
Yeah.
in the streets. And in many instances, you might find that you can minister in places that you would never think
That's true.
that folks have their attitudes. And so simply because they're in the streets
Yeah.
does not necessarily mean that they are below help,
Yeah.
you see. Nor because they're not in the streets don't
Yeah.
mean that they don't need help. And so I think
That's
that
right.
as long as
Even at the job.
at the job,
Even at the
wherever
job.
you are.
That's
You
right.
see, anytime you can bring a good word of cheer, a word of confidence, a word of support, no matter who they are and where they are. You know, just a lot of times when you go by and if you just speak to people, you know, sometimes all you have to do is just speak to them.
Smile.
A lot of folks smile.
Yeah.
That's all. A lot of folks have not had anybody to smile.
That's true.
At them for. And sometimes I go into some of these shops, you know, in the mall and whatever, and everybody I pass, I speak. How you doing today?
Yeah.
How you doing
Oh,
today?
yeah,
And
definitely.
people sometimes look back over the
Yeah,
shoulder. and
wonder what's going on.
Yeah, why are you speaking to
Yeah,
me?
right,
You know,
yeah.
in a real sense. But I think in a real sense, Marlo and Pastor Walker, I think that we've given our information for the morning, and I
Yes,
think
sir.
that the information that the two of you have given to us is both encouraging, and if people have an opportunity to see it, they will have an opportunity to change their minds. And so we want to thank you, and of course let me thank our audience and encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.
Gonna need me again?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Because I think the other folks are going to show up.
Okay.
You see, but I think
Okay.
we're covered it.
Thank you, Doctor.
But we appreciate you.
Yes,
we
sir.
appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate Pastor Walker for.
Pastor Walker,
Yes, sir.
see you tonight at Bible class.
Yes, sir. We got a lot of work to do, man.
Man, yes, yeah. Like you said, the harvest is plentiful.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Is Waller back over there? What did he do? Go over and went to sleep?
Oh man, my
No, I was
fault.
just
I'm
ready.
finna take it with me.
You guys
get
dressed mighty quickly.
I forgot I had it on.
It is, right?
Okay, Brother Waller, you want to come on around?
Yes, I can. I can. I just want to make
Now,
sure.
we
I
want to do
good
what
see
we
you, brother.
want to call this
You're doing a good
minister
job.
in the streets. What we want to call this?
Yes, sir. Pleasure. Always good to see you.
The same thing.
Pastor Walker,
Yes, sir.
God's will, see you tonight at Bible class.
Brother Waller, come on over and have a seat here.
Okay. Thanks again for
Good.
having me over here.
And I tell you, why don't you take that book, Brother Waller, and give it to him, and he might be able to get a shot of it. And you don't have to,
Yes,
you
sir.
know.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
That's better. Because I can give.
Are you promoting the book?
Well, yes,
Yeah.
I am. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Okay. Okay. All right. Let me get in here. Okay.
Okay.
Let me see.
Bringing hope.
Count to 10. 1, 2, 3,
Bringing hopes to the
4,
street.
Yeah,
5,
bringing hopes to the
6,
streets.
7,
Bringing
8,
hope.
9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Let me scoot it up.
You might be able, yeah. Can you push you up?
Okay.
Or either, I think the chair has something that allows it to give, or something like that.
Yeah, I think it's chair.
On his,
Chair just pushed back.
yeah, it's something over here. I don't know, but my man probably can.
And you can tighten it so it won't move.
Yeah. My man, let him. You can handle. You can.
Yeah.
No, he's.
It looks like it's kind of back,
If you want to bring it up a little bit.
like it's back a little bit this way instead of up, even with us.
Do what? Oh, you can bring the seat up.
Okay, let me stand up. Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
let's try it now.
Try it now.
Back too far.
But his weight, I think his weight would push it
Yeah.
on down even.
No, I'm talking about for
Back as far as.
Back there.
Oh, no, it needs to right so I can
Oh.
get him in the shot.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm back again. Here I go, brother. Let me see if I can put my feet. Is there anything that can let down here? I'm guessing I'm all right. So I can turn this way?
Yeah, you want to sort of, could you move it back forward?
The back part?
Yeah, back
Uh,
I'll make it work though. I can sit up if I have to.
forward. Yeah, like
I can sit up like this if I have to. Yeah.
have your book
Now,
here.
Rick
So
Waller,
camera
is that right?
three,
Yeah, Ricky.
focus on
Ricky.
the book.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Ricky Waller.
You got a book that you presented to us last time.
I did. Yeah, that book is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what we want to call this, according to Pastor Walker, we want to call this Bringing Hope from the Streets.
Bringing hope to the streets. To the streets. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is bringing hope to the streets. And we're fortunate to have with us to talk about some of the activities in street ministering, Pastor Kay Walker and Rick Waller, two individuals who have quite a bit of information in reference to what is going on in the streets today. And Pastor Walker, I think that you came with other individuals, and we've had an opportunity to talk about some of the activities that you've been involved in the streets, as well as Rick Waller. We've had Mr. Waller on here before, but let's have the two of you. For those individuals who might not know either you or Mr. Waller, to give us some information about your background, your education, and some of your experiences. And you should take about 3 minutes, Pastor Walker, to talk about some of your background, education, and experiences. And after that, Waller will take a couple of minutes to talk about his background, education, and the book, I think, that he has with him. And then we'll be out of that first segment, and then we'll go into that 8-minute and next 10-minute segment. But first, let's start with you, Pastor Walker.
Okay, well, once again, Dr. Haney, good morning, and thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be on your show. I'm Pastor Kelvin L. Walker, Associate Pastor, Fairfield Missionary Baptist Church, under the leadership of my senior pastor, Howard E. Jones, Jr. Born and raised here in Nashville, Tennessee, two good parents that raised me right, but I went wrong. But at the same time, you know, I did get the teaching, I did get to understand, I got the knowledge. I got kicked out of the public school system, you know, around the beginning of my 10th grade year. I was kicked out. I wasn't a desirable character during that period of time in my life. Ended up in the United States Navy as a result of being involved in a shooting where I had shot someone, and the judge sent me to the military as opposed to sending me to reform school at the time. And of course, I got in there and just using drugs and everything like that. Got out of there and ended up incarcerated in the state prison system and everything. He had some college studies at Tennessee State University. In that period of time after my release from the Navy, between being released from the Navy and being incarcerated, I did do some studies at Tennessee State University. While incarcerated, I did some study with the Trevecca East Campus Prison Program as well, trying to major in business and stuff like that, and some theological stuff I studied in there as well. But I got out on reform and continued in my criminal lifestyle and stuff. And back in 1986, God stepped in my life, intervened, pulled me out of that, called me in the ministry, and that's what I've been doing for the last almost 33 years now. It brings me to this stage right now, Dr. Haney.
Mm-hmm. And I would imagine, Waller, you can say about the same thing in reference to why you're here this morning, bringing ministry to the streets. Let's talk about how you became who you are today, Pastor Waller.
Thank you, Dr. Haney, for allowing me to be here. I want to thank my partner, Pastor Kevin L. Walker, for inviting me to come. My background is that I grew up in Preston Taylor Projects in West Nashville. Went to Moses McKissick, very innocent. And by the time I ended up at Washington Junior High, the schools became integrated. I was in the 7th grade. I was transferred to W.A. Bass, and I got caught up into the drug game. And I was a great basketball player, according to what people would say. And then I ended up going to Cone High School, as far as I went. And while I was there, I was deep into the streets. I became the supplier of my community by the time I was in high school. And so what happened was I quit school, and the gym teacher would see whoever could play whatever type of sports. And I didn't know he was probably watching me, and all of a sudden I'm not in school anymore. I believe he probably went to the principal and whoever he had to go to said, you need to get that boy back in school. So to make a long story short, I ended up going back to school, and I played basketball for them on up until the 12th grade, and I didn't go no further. And I was educated in the streets. I was taught well what it's like to be in bondage. And that was because of the wicked schemes of the enemy and how he captured my mind and taught me how to do his will. And so after I went through that process, I know now that what he meant for bad, God can get some good out of it. And that's why I'm here to talk about how I was released from the bondage that controlled my life for so many years.
And in other words, Pastor Walker, I think I could say this in reference to your story as well as Waller's story. God is good.
Yes.
And
Yes,
he will do some wonderful things.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that I might not have been in the streets, quote, as such, but I know what God can do, and I know that he has intervened in my life just as he intervened in your life.
Yes, I believe that.
While we might have traveled different roads, I think that we're all at the same place in reference to what we're doing today. And I just want to thank you up front, the two of you, and we'll talk about other things after we have our first commercial break. We'll come back and we'll have 2 segments for you and Pastor Walker to talk about ministering in the streets. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.
You got away.
Hey, sometimes
Most of us, when you grow up like that, you could.
Yeah, you do what you
do. Walking down the street, somebody say, "Here come the police." Everybody run.
Everybody take off. Yeah,
that's the going thing.
That's right.
They got to run.
Yeah.
That's right. And so it's good for folks to hear our testimony.
Oh yeah, it is.
Because they know that anything can be overcome.
Yeah.
So
Oh
you
yeah,
have to
without a doubt.
understand
Yeah.
And that God is the source of it all. That's what I try to be consistent in reference to everybody I talk to. We're talking about what God has done to them.
That's right.
Know it.
Thank you, and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor K. Walker and Minister Rick Waller, Rick Waller, Mr. Waller, and as long as I've known you, I still get stuck on Rick,
Pastor
Waller,
yes,
both talking about bringing folks into the gospel into Christ, and talking about relationships with God, and how people, for the most part, that are in the streets don't have an opportunity until people like yourselves go in and help provide that opportunity, and that opportunity can often be just the knowledge of God.
Right.
And people are looking for that today. Let's start off, Waller, by having you to make some statements in reference to not only how you came here, but I think that you've got a book that you've spent quite a bit of time in terms of writing it and et cetera. And I know the story of the book, but I think it's well enough for our audience to know something about that book.
With that book, you know, I really appreciate it because God knew I needed some help. And that book was a part of the help that I needed to reach out and let people know that, that God is real. And for those who knew me from my past, had a hard time believing that my life had changed, but they allowed me to continue without trying to force me to go back into what I just came out of. And so, you know, with knowing that I'm toiling out in the streets because I know hurting people were in the street, because I came from that. And not only that, being that I became a supplier, so I was distributing drugs because I had learned some things that street life had offered. And when I got captured, I didn't know I was doing harm to my community. But when God brought me out, what he reminded me of, that I had a right to go back out there and to let people know that there is a way to escape. There's a scripture according to 2 Timothy chapter number 2, verse 26. He says, and that they may come to their senses and escape the snare, the trap of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his will. See, I used to do his will, and I was faithful at it. I don't know everything about street life, but I've had my share of what it would do to one. If he's lured into the power of darkness, he have to call on some help. And so in the midst of the book, God knew that I loved to get high. Not only was I a supplier, I used to get high. I was a heroin user. I was on it for 20 years of my life. And in the midst of doing all of that, it was like a state of no return. But one day I heard my mother, when I was a little boy growing up, she didn't read the Bible, according to my knowledge. I never seen her do that. But I always remember that time when I used to hear her say from time to time, Lord, have mercy on me. And those words, when I grew up, I thought about those words. And then in between the time she said that, along the way, she would say, thank you, Jesus. And then that really dawned on me. I said, now, that was a time when she called on it. And I know that they say he may not come when you want him to, but he's always on time. So I didn't know all about those cliches or anything, but I'm still dealing with my mother's saying. And sure enough, I just decided to say, I wonder would he have mercy on me? And I went to him, and he allowed me to come in just as I was. I went into the church. I snorted heroin in the church because somebody told me that you can come as you are. I'm not talking about clothing. I'm talking about the trouble that's in your life. And so that's what I did. And since God knew that I loved to get high, he was my witness that I had been getting high for all those years. So I don't pretend like I'm from the streets. I have a stamp of approval from the guys and people that was in the street that knew I played the game fair. But yet still, coming out is hard to believe that a person can get out of that. So God said, Ricky, I know you love to get high, but I'm going to introduce you to the greatest high of them all. And if you don't like it, you can always go back to the one that you love the most. So I had a taste of what he offered me. I took one hit of being free. Now I've been delivered for 27 years in a row. So he gave me a book that's entitled Still High. No more getting high. And see, when people learn about what it's like to just stay high, and my friend Pastor Kevin Walker had just talked about how you end up being incarcerated in prison for doing things because drugs would make you do things that you probably wouldn't even do had you not gotten on the drug. And that was me. And so then I discovered in the Word, it said in Psalms 34, verse 8, it said, oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who trusted him. See, I had to learn how to trust in the Lord, and the Lord didn't tell me when I went into the church, stop doing them drugs. He allowed me to continue to go in the bathroom and do drugs until I got to a point where I said, I got to have a talk with him because I'm tired of coming in this church doing these drugs. I feel like I'm disrespecting him. So I was going into the rest area for my last time, I thought. Went in there and I opened my pack up, as I normally would do. And before I took that hit, because I heard someone say just a little talk with Jesus will make everything all right, so I decided to have a little talk before I left out that door. And I said these words. I said, God, I said, I'm tired of coming in this church disrespecting you. But I heard a voice so powerful say, you're in the right place. And see, that's what people in the streets are afraid of. They think that they're doing so wrong that they don't want to come into a church, so you have to take it to the streets and allow them to know that there's evidence. The word says, let your light so shine before men that they will see your good work and then glorify your Father in heaven. So a lot of times you don't even have to say anything. People who know you will watch you and then come up